Good morning, YouTube. I want you all to share this video, especially if you know of a law enforcement, local police, FBI. I want to do this video to educate law enforcement. Now, we really wish that the DAs would get a hold of this, the judges, the lawyers, the courts. We have a huge problem on our hands. Folks, when I first started doing this, I didn't know that it was this bad. I really didn't. And to be honest with you, as a preacher, as sharing the Word of God, when God put that on my heart in March 2020 to preach His Word, I never imagined that I would be doing this. because I'm not Amish anymore, I just want to leave them alone. I don't want to have that negative exposure on them because they do have a very unique lifestyle and they have a plain living that a lot of people are very interested. And I'm interested in the lifestyle. I just didn't want to follow the rules, and so I left. Now, but when we see evil being done, especially to innocent children, we have to do something about it. I have given them many opportunities to fix it. I thank God for the few seminars that have taken place now in Millersburg, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. They had a couple of them, I think Lancaster, where they actually made it a discussion about this abuse, sexual abuse, the pedophiles that are among the Amish, and warning them to stop what they're doing. But I really like the ones where they're putting like counseling in place and getting resources ready to tackle this issue. But we have a lot of 99% of Amish communities across the United States do not have this under control whatsoever. And every week now I'm getting calls and messages from different Amish that are literally still inside the community, like the one I'm going to share with you right now. And I want all law enforcement agencies to be aware how the Amish system is set up and how it works so that they can better handle or investigate the Amish when it comes to the Amish. Because in my community, when I talked to the sheriff, here's what I was told. They are very secretive. We don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what we're doing. They're just kind of their own little religious group. We don't really necessarily know what's going on. I said, well, that's a problem. We should know what's going on. Yeah, but they stay secretive. They don't tell us anything. Well, that's why I'm doing this video. The Amish want to take care of it themselves. There's many very conservative, old order. There's the Schwarzentroopers. They will keep everything hidden. And these conservative groups that I'm mentioning in this video, I'm not even putting them in the same boat with the Mennonites and the New Order that actually report pedophiles and child molesters to the law, call 911, because most of them have phones anyway. I'm not even talking about them. They do the right thing. God's going to bless their community and their Amish lives for doing the right thing and standing up for the victims. In this video, I'm talking about the hundreds of thousands of old order Amish communities and Schwarzentrooper Amish religious groups that teach the same way my community did. That you have to follow what the forefathers taught you, and the rules in their ordinance are number one. And that means when you break the law, that is less important than the rules that you have to follow that are in place for that community. Now, I was told to break the law when it comes to hunting rules, hunter's orange, even the septic system that was updated, the new code as of 2012 that were passed by law, now government law, Even my own sister her and her husband moved out of the community because the community wanted them to go to jail. Because it was more important to follow their rules and not give in to the government and get that updated septic system. And in my case, wear hunter's orange and follow the law. You're supposed to go to court. You're supposed to go to jail. They look at it as persecution. Because their rules are absolutely, in their eyes, more important than the law. So now, the reason I say this is to get to this point here. These gruesome sex acts, child molestation, incest, these pedophiles are looked at as, oops, they messed up, we got to forgive them. Now, in the Amish, this case here that I have in my lap that I just reported this week to law enforcement, I explained to the authorities how this man here in this case got 2 weeks of shunning. I want you to know what that looks like. That 2 weeks of shunning is something where they can't take something from the other church member's hand, even in the family. Even in the family, in your own home, you got to eat separately, and it's kind of embarrassing, I guess. They make you feel shameful. They say it's biblical to do that, and to shun and make the person shameful for what they've done. If the person acts like they're remorseful and regret what they've done, they will then vote so many weeks. If the 2 weeks of shunning is up, they will vote to see, hey, do you all agree in this congregation that so-and-so does seem regretful and has repented and won't do it again? Okay, yes, they all vote on it. Now, even if one person votes no, that they can't do it, they got to wait another Sunday or whatever. So I want law enforcement, the DAs, the lawyers, and the judges to know this. This is what that looks like. You get a couple weeks of shunning. Now, during this shunning period, the same victim is still in the same house with the pedophile. Think about that for a minute. If he's not truly wanting to repent, he can, that very same evening, he can go do it again. And by the way, the reason I say that, I got a lot of victims on. They share their personal testimonies on YouTube and on Facebook. That is exactly what's happening. Now, after they're forgiven, they're still in the same home. And by the way, at that point, when you're deemed forgiven by the church, you can't bring that back up. If a victim brings that back up, now they will punish the victim because they say, oh, you brought it up because you didn't forgive. Because if you would have forgiven the pedophile, you wouldn't be bringing it back up. So I want you to understand that system. And now, I can't take too long, but I just want to explain the basics of how the Amish conservative groups work, the Swartz and Trooper Amish. If you are a police agency around the Amish communities that are operating like this, and they're very secretive, and you operate in this way, I called a state and made a report about my own family member that was accused of doing things and even moved from our community to that state because obviously some of the ex-Amish that were leaving, they were hearing, telling me how they were hearing when that family member of mine was still in the community, and when they confessed their sins in front of the church, what they were saying that they did. It's pretty gruesome. Nasty. Incest. So I reported this because I heard from the bishop in that state that he was still suspected of doing these things, but he was very manipulative, and he was a preacher now, and he was able to fly under the radar. So every time that I would complain about a situation, in this case here, the sheriff would go out and ask questions. And you know what he heard? It's not happening here, and if it is, we have discipline. We take care of it in the church. So that's why I want you all to know, law enforcement should never walk away when they hear that. You need to take the victims, ask for their names, pull them completely away from the abusers. The mom, dad, the parents, the bishop, everything. Leave. Go to the sheriff's department, whatever you got to do. And then we have resources now. Interpreters that can speak Dutch, even a young Amish victim that can only speak Dutch. We have those through Amish Rescue Mission available now. If you need to call that number. We are us all. There's so many of us former Amish that can assist in this now. And we need to get them separate to where we can ask them questions, make them feel safe, where they can talk openly about what's happening to them. Because when they're asked these questions and they glance at the father or the abuser, that's a big red flag. They're in fear. They're going to look at whoever's abusing them. They're not going to want to answer that. But I don't want to wait any longer. I want to share this, how an Amish man got a hold of me. And he says, we got word that they told the preachers this week they will turn, I'm not going to use the names, but he did because I had to do a police report on this, blank, if they will they told the preachers that they will turn blank in if the preachers don't do it. I also found out this evening that blank has been doing this for 5 years, and the preachers only shun him for 2 weeks because he's an elderly man. The only reason they are making blank turn himself in is because someone is making them. Now, all of you law enforcement, I want you to know that when an Amish man comes to you like this and he confesses and turns himself in, that don't necessarily mean he is sorry for what he done and he's turning himself in. That means he could be very well pressured to do this because some of us former Amish or some of the actual Amish might have said, hey, that is so wrong what you done that you better turn yourself in or I will. So that doesn't mean that he's voluntarily coming to you to turn himself in. Now, the law's going to think, wow, the Amish are actually turning themselves in when they're being pressured to do so. And I think we need to pressure them to do so. Now, this man that got a hold of me, he said, so this is how the Amish preachers are in, and he actually, this particular community is in Fillmore, New York, the Centerville, New York area, or Bliss, New York, whatever you want to call it. And the bishop in one of the 3 churches around there, he called the cops on one of my best friends for coming to the bishop's house mad and confronting him about how he is handling things. I have done the same thing. I got very angry and upset and confronted the bishop in my community, and of course I was chased off pretty quick. I'm just aggravated at how things are being handled. So he calls the cops because someone mad confronted him, but he refused to call the cops on the child molesters inside his community. So blank, I'm not going to use the name, an Amish man in that community called the cops when someone shot a hole with a gun in his hunting shack, and also calls the cops when someone stole something from his shop. But that's a crime, sure. I don't blame him. Call the cops. But they will not call the cops when an Amish elder in the church got caught with incest, raping his own daughter, grandchildren, little boys and girls. Not allowed to report that. All of you law enforcement, if you get a hold of this video, I want you to know what I was told in my community. That I would be punished if I went outside of the church and told anyone, even called 911. There's punishment. Because their Ordnung and their rules that are written up, you have to strictly follow that. And if I went and called 911 because my sister or my family member was getting raped, I can now get punishment in church because you're supposed to go to the bishop and let the bishop and everyone else handle that. And by the way, there is a bishop doing many years in prison in Pennsylvania because they proved, the ex-Amish spoke up. The former Amish spoke up, and they were able to prove that he covered this nonsense up. Pedophilia. He covered it up for 30 years. Now, if we get more of those, I think the Amish might just wake up a little bit. Now, I'm getting very bad reports out of some of the Mennonites as well. I will tell you that when I went to Paris, Tennessee, and rented a cabin off of this Mennonite couple, they had it all together there. They were saved. They believed in salvation. And it just shows when the religious groups don't believe in salvation, take God out of it, they always have the sexual immorality spirit that takes over and haunts them. So many generational curses on those religious groups. But when I was at that Paris, Tennessee Mennonite community, they accepted me. They sat down and we talked into the night. And I even asked them, I said, if you have a situation with a pedophile or child molester, what do you got? How do you guys handle that? Oh, we call 911, we call the cops. See the difference? See the difference? Now, I am hearing from some Mennonites, like the Beachy Mennonites. There's a couple different Beachy Mennonites. They're not all the same. They're all different. They all got different. Also, the Holdeman Mennonites, the Western something Mennonite out of Danville, Pennsylvania. There's so many that are also just as bad as the older Amish. So we can't put them all in the same boat. I always like to recognize the ones that do have it together, and they call the law on anybody that does a crime, instead of trying to go to the bishop and say, hey, let's take care of this and try to keep it hush-hush. I like to recognize those because they're not all the same. So this person goes on to say to me, my point is that the bishop and the preachers here in Fillmore, New York, are okay with calling the cops when it comes to protecting an adult. But when it comes to a little child that can't defend themselves, they purposely tell the people to keep it hush-hush and quiet so no one calls the cops, because they do not want any of the elders, even a preacher, to go through the English worldly, they think it's a worldly people that is not part of them, to go through their court system and end up getting years in prison. They don't believe in that. I learned that a few months ago, 2 little girls were doing things to each other, so the parents asked those 2 girls why they are doing. Now, I didn't go into detail because I want to kind of keep this kid friendly if I can. The parents asked these 2 daughters that they had that why they were doing these acts when they opened their bedroom door and caught them doing some heinous things that they never thought their daughters knew to do. And the little girls replied by saying, that's how our grandfather does it. That's where they learned it from. Grandfather likes it when we do that to each other, turns him on. He lives right on the other side of the driveway from the little girl's house. Now, for any of you that don't understand the Amish, we always take care of the parents. Usually the youngest child stays on the farm to run the farm and take care of the parents. In this case, that is what it sounds like. Grandfather lives right across the driveway. And the grandfather was only kicked out of church for 2 weeks, and then he was forgiven. Now, I want you to check this out. The preachers are treating this second-time child molester, which he was busted before. Do you see how he didn't repent? Because there was no court, no jury, no jail, no consequences. So now he repeats the same act. And he still only gets 2 weeks because he's an older man and he's considered, pretty respected in the community. And so now he gets 2 weeks for a child molestation. And then, check this out. This Amish man tells me that him and his buddies got caught drinking a beer. And they also got caught with their cell phones. And they were punished for much more than 2 weeks. That is what is happening in my personal community of Kenton, Ohio. Same thing. 2 weeks of shunning for a child molester, a pedophile. But you can get 6 to 8 weeks if you get caught drinking a beer or having a cell phone. Hello? There's something wrong with that? Yeah, there's something terribly wrong with the broken system that the Amish have in place. It's disgusting. It angers me to the point where I got to start doing more educational videos and educate our government, FBI, federal, local, sheriff, local cops, everybody. And educate everybody else to watch for signs and ask questions to these poor little women and children. Poor little kids. Even little boys are being raped. I talked to a man just last week that said that was what was happening to him, his own uncle. He was only 5 years old, and he was gay. Slamming him in the rear. I mean, Now the little girls are not allowed to go outside. They're in Fillmore, New York, this case here. They're not allowed to go outside and play while a child molester lives right on the other side of the driveway and gets to do whatever he wants and live a normal life. That's disgusting. The child molester has a normal life, can go out and work in the shop, do crafts, construction, whatever he wants to do, and have a normal life. While the 2 little victims, his grandbabies, they're told they can't go outside and play because their grandpa has a sick mind. He's a pervert. But why are the little girls being punished? They have no more freedom? They can't go outside and play now? Because they already know they have a sick, perverted grandpa that's going to yank them inside the shop and do it all over again? Someone told the preacher that it's not right that you treat the molesters. Most of these pedophiles are old men. But here, I got off the chart here. Someone told the preachers that it is wrong how they are treating the child molesters differently and that they should not be doing it this way. And then he said, those same ones that got busted with a beer and a phone, it'll lead to that. Is that the reply you're going to come back with? See, they will do anything they can to protect the adults that are church members. Most of these pedophiles are old men and that never really had cell phones, but since they're old, they get lighter punishment. And then blank another name. There was actually a couple pedophiles revealed in this report. So blank and name another old man got caught molesting his own kids, all of his girls, every one of them, for many, many years. In my community, we found out about an old man that was doing it since I was still Amish. I didn't realize that stuff was happening when I left. I've been out 23 years this month. And I found out stuff that they were doing, and all of his daughters got married before it ever was talked about. Because he had them in fear, and he told them what would happen if they talked about it. So now they get up there and get a boyfriend, they get married, they got their own kids, and they tell their husband. Some of the husbands didn't stay quiet. They said something to the church. I like that. Because they see these old Amish pedophiles think they can get by with that. Nothing's ever going to happen. They have no fear. So I like how some of the husbands said, oh, I'm going to say something about that. Are you telling me that I wasn't able to break my wife's virginity? No, their daddy did. And in some cases, the brother did. It's disgusting. You know how ticked off I would be if I'd have got married Amish and she told me she's been getting raped since she was 5 years old? Good thing I'm born again, because I'd do something I wouldn't want to do to those pedophiles. I can't stand evil. Another preacher that was asked about this blank person thinks it's horrible that blank might have to go to prison. He said, it's just so sad if blah, blah has to go to prison and go through the worldly court. God can't be happy because we have to take care of it and forgive him. Hello, have you done anything for the child or the victim? Oh, they don't discuss that. The victim's supposed to forget and forgive. These preachers are very, very evil people. They literally stick up for a child molester, and then this person said, this Amish man that contacted me, he says, makes me wonder if there are more people doing this crap. And I told him, yeah, there is. Because these are only the ones we know of. These are only the ones we know of. Can you imagine how many more are happening right now by the thousands we don't know of? So I want everyone to be educated how the Amish system works before I wrap this video up. All crime in old order conservative Amish communities, not New Order and Mennonite, most of them, there's some Mennonites that also do the same thing. But I got to say that because there's a lot of them that follow me on here and they get so angry that I'm putting them all in the same boat. But there are some of them, and I will leave them out of that boat if they got it together and they're calling law enforcement and doing the right thing. Following the actual law and putting the law above their rules. Then I will leave you alone. But I will all day, every day start exposing the ones that put their rules above the law. Because they have a religious name, they believe that is now exempting them from having to do with anything in the court system, following any laws of the government, and that they are standing alone. We're good people. And they already know that the outside looks at them as very good people. Overnight, I got up this morning and I had a message from a young man that had just left the Amish. And he was very bitter, I could tell. He says, Eli, I like what you're doing on your videos. And I just want you to know, I don't think you even realize how disgusting my community is. I said, well, I could about imagine. I come out of one too. And he says, no, you don't understand. Oh, he went to another level. He says, they will do everything they can to make themselves look so good. They want the world to look at them as such good people that got it all together. But he went on to tell me that there is absolute, really disgusting rapes, child molestation, there's even animal sex acts happening. And yeah, it just broke my heart. And I knew that he had experienced enough that he left the Amish and he wants nothing to do with it. He said he watched grown men, 70, 80 years old, getting on their knees and literally confessing that they had just had sex with their own granddaughters and their own children. Folks, I remember when the first Catholic priest got busted, it made all the Catholics look bad. But that didn't mean they were all bad. I'm here to tell you today there's a lot of good Amish, good-hearted, Christian, want to do what's right. But I'm also here today to tell you there's a lot of bad apples in every bunch. And those bad, rotten apples need to be picked out of that group and thrown into prison. And I want our DAs and our lawyers and judges not to be light on these people. They've always been treated better because of who they are. I got reports through Amish Rescue Mission that there were several of them just last month that got only house arrest and probation, while anybody else that was non-Amish would have got 20 years in prison for the same incest. Why did that happen? Because they're Amish. And I also want law enforcement to understand the reason in my county, with my personal experience, the reason the Amish would always pack the court is to make the judge feel intimidated, and the judge almost always feels bad because of their sad, long faces, looking so religious. We got it all together. Please have mercy on me. That's what they want. And it works. Because in my county, I remember the courthouse was full when it came to the septic system thing and the Hunter's Orange. And the courthouse was so full, the Amish were lined up outside. They do this. They pack the court, they show up, and it makes the judge feel bad. Oh, we got to let those good people alone. We got to leave them alone. See, they want to look good on the outside. But the courts don't understand what is really happening. Us former Amish that leave, we understand the system. We've seen it, we've lived it, and we've even heard the confessions before the church of what they have done. They confess their sins to the bishop. And if you heard some of the sins that are being confessed, you would throw up in your mouth. It's sick. And if it was anybody else, they'd be doing life in prison in some instances. I just want you to know I have a burden. I have a heavy, heavy burden on me to do what is right. And as a Christian, I hate evil. I really do. I hate evil. I hope that makes all of you understand how the Amish system is set up and what is happening. Don't never walk away and don't stop asking questions because they said we got it taken care of. Everything's okay here. Dig deeper. Ask questions. Go to one Amish community to another. Because if the feds and local law enforcement goes one house to another, you will learn something really quick. You'll get a different story from just about every family. What does that tell you if you're an investigator? That's always a red flag when everybody has a different story. Because they want to make sure that it doesn't get found out. But the things that are happening and the community knows about it, everybody's going to have a hiccup here and there and say something a little different. They are going to have a little bit of a different story. So that's when you ask questions and start writing it down. It's got to be investigated. You can't just walk away and do nothing. So anyway, I got a load here now, so I got to hit the road. Share the video. Get the word out there. We got to educate people and let them know how the Amish system is really set up. And by the way, I do not hate them. I just visited my mother. I love my mom. I love my family. I love all my beloved Amish community. My people, the Amish, are for the most part very good people, and they have a weakness that they don't necessarily see themselves because they've always operated under that system, and they believe that is what's pleasing God. And they will do absolutely nothing to try to fix that because they think they have the best system. So if we don't make awareness and do something about it, they may never see that it's failing miserably. Some of them, I think, do realize that it's failing because it's on the rise now. There's more pedophiles being busted in the Amish than ever before, and they're actually going through the English court system. There's also a lot of them that have been through. There's one that got charged in northern Indiana just not long ago. So there's some of them because it's on the rise. That's why it's being found out, because it's now on the rise like never before. So anyway, y'all have a blessed day today. See ya.